Hello, everyone. Going through this course, I found a lot of interest in how technical theater has progressed throughout history. I did a good bit of scenic design and technical direction in college, so I thought it would be a fun topic to research and shed some light on techniques that were used. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that many techniques that we commonly see in professional productions or on Broadway were actually created a long, long time ago. And they've maintained popularity for this long. I've picked three revolutionary techniques that stood out to me, which include the fly system, stage lifts, and chariot and pole type horizontal drive systems. These kind of creations affect the way scenic designers can create the world of the play. That's why, after some of this history, I thought it would be awesome to actually interview a professional scenic designer about the technique that he uses now in modern theater. So to start, I like to jump into the most common element we find in most modern theaters. This would be the fly system. Brockett tells us that we can trace flying machinery all the way back to the Middle Ages, but the first modern counterweight system we see today was found in the Booth Theater in 1869. The whole idea of a fly system is to allow a production to have scenery pieces raised and lowered in or out of sight. It allowed scene changes to swiftly take place and go from location to location much easier than traditional scenic techniques. The Backstage Handbook gives us an excellent look into how these actually are operated. The entire system is essentially broken down into pulleys, ropes, and weight. On one side of the rope comes down overhead of the stage, and the other side comes down to where the line set is actually operated. That side where it's operated is connected to a weight, which allows you to balance the entire system. So if you have a 400-pound scenery piece on one side, you put it 400 pounds on the other. So that would let the operator actually bring in the scenery piece with very little effort and make it really nice and smooth to go up and down. Another common thing we see are stage lifts. It's hard to find a Broadway show today where something doesn't raise from the floor. These are often accompanied by traps that open up and let the lift come through. Encyclopedia Britannica shows us the several different types of modern stage lifts. There are direct plunger lifts, which are hydraulically driven with a piston, and then there are screw actuated lifts, which can be either electrically or hydraulically driven. Each are used depending on what you're lifting, which can vary greatly from show to show. For instance, in the Broadway show The Lion King, we see the entire floor being raised up to create Pride Rock, but in Aladdin, we see actual actors being shot up through the floor. Brockett tells us that stage lifts of varying technology have been around since the late 1800s. So we covered scenery coming from above and below. The only thing left is from the sides. Brockett tells us about the chariot and pole system for one of those. This was created in Italy in the 1600s by Torelli. This system was used to track flats on and off the stage horizontally. Underneath the stage existed a pulley system that would be able to move each flat without being seen from the audience. The flats were actually connected through the floor to this rope system, which was able to move them. So Encyclopedia Britannica again tells us about how they're still used today in shows. Now they're driven with electric motors or hydraulic components, and that eliminates the need for the entire substage system, making it a lot more compact. Wicked currently uses this type of system for a lot of their scenes, and again, you can find this in a lot of different shows. So these were just a few methods created for theater scenery that are still useful today. There's a lot more that we could cover. I felt these three were the most prominent. So now that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get some professional insight on modern set design. So introduce yourself and tell us about your position here.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Jordan Moore. I'm the resident scenic designer at Florida Repertory Theater. This is my 6th season with the company and my 3rd year as the resident scenic designer.
So what college did you go to, and can you tell us about your experience there?
Yes, I went to Florida State University up in Tallahassee, Florida, and I focused on scenic art and scenic design in their School of Theater program. And at Florida State, I worked with a couple different organizations through the School of Theater, one of them being STA, which was the Student Theater Association. This was a program that was all student-based production, so from the director to the producer and the designers, actors, everyone basically had some sort of affiliation with being a student at the School of Theater. I also assistant scenic designed a couple of our main stage productions with professors. So I did The Seagull, I helped on work with Hamlet, so just a variation of different productions at Florida State.
So what shows will you be designing this season, and can you tell us a little bit about the theaters you'll be designing in?
Absolutely. So I work with our education program here at Florida Rep. So I will be doing their TYA tours, which is Cat in the Hat and brand new works that we are commissioning called Refugee. And then for our main season, I will be doing Million Dollar Quartet on our main Arcade Proscenium Theater, which houses about 380 patrons. And in our smaller black box theater, the Art Stage Studio, I'll be doing Tenderly, which is a musical review, and I'll be doing a brand new works called Damascus, which houses about 120 of our patrons. And then at the end of the season, I will be designing our conservatory for our education program, which is going to be Newsies this year, which will also be on the arcade stage.
So what kind of technical elements can you foresee yourself using to facilitate different scenic transitions?
For the main stage, when we have our larger sets, we use the kind of typical standard things like tracking walls and moving wagon units and things like that, just because we have more space to play with. However, when I do sets like Damascus, that's going to be in our smaller stage, we have to get a little more creative with it. So one of the elements that we're going to be using this year is projections, kind of as a use of a multimedia transition. So it's through the work of imagery and lights and video work and things like that, that'll kind of bring us from each location in this play that we'll be doing.
So do you have a fly system in this theater?
We do not.
So how would you differ with your scenic design if you did have a fly system?
Well, I think it would really allow me to even elevate my designs more, especially when we do shows like last year we did Cabaret, so bigger musicals and things like that, I think really would allow you to bring more into the space. It would help you have more vast transitions when you go from location to location or from kind of your different worlds in your show. So I definitely think that adding a fly rail would emphasize the designs. I would say at the same time though that while it would benefit me as a designer to have a fly rail, sometimes it's, I wouldn't say nice, but it's interesting not to have one because you have to think more creatively, or you have to really figure out, okay, how am I going to make this transition work on a smaller scale.
So if you could magically cut the roof off and put a fly system in, would you or would you not?
Oh, absolutely. I would welcome having another tool on the stage that we would get to play with.
So what has been your most rewarding experience as a scenic designer?
I want to say one of the most rewarding things, especially being at Florida Repertory Theater, I'd say two things. One of the things is working with our education program. I really think it's important for TYA, which is Theater for Young Audiences, to be always present, and especially in younger audiences' lives. I think it definitely gives kids an outlet, and to some of these kids, it's their very first time ever seeing theater. So it's really exciting when you get fresh kind of bodies in the space, and you see their eyes light up, and you kind of have that impact with the show that you're doing. The other thing I will say that's really rewarding is it's kind of like a behind the scenes element, but it's always rewarding for a designer when you kind of go out during intermission or into the house and you hear audience members walking around and you just hear like the talk and you hear people say, oh, that set was really like, it's so, oh, this is so interesting to look at, or like, oh, like, did you see that? And you kind of hear people like what you were trying to achieve with your design, like kind of like it's actually going through the motions now in their heads, and it kind of like shows that like all the hard work and all the time and effort towards it really pays off, because these people are coming in there and they're enjoying it and they're taking something away with them after they see their show.
Well, thank you for your time, Jordan. I think you have a design run to get to.
I actually do have a design presentation for the next show, so it's been fun, it's been great, but bye.